Hey guys, so I thought I'd do a video on how I do touch ICs since everybody posted one the other night. Um, I don't have a very fast internet upload speed, so I got to record mine. I can't do live like you guys can. So anyways, I'll start by heating this little fabric shield up and try to get all this adhesive off with the fabric, so I don't have to clean it later is what I try to do. Doesn't look like it's working very well, but oh well. Yeah, that didn't work very well. Still got a bunch of fucking tar-like adhesive on it. I always put a quarter or a nickel or something here next to Meson, and that's all I'm going to replace on this particular phone is just Meson. So the way it had gray bars and lost touch every once in a while. So in my experience, that is the Meson chip, so that's what we're going to replace. I'm actually zoomed out a little bit more than what I usually am. I'm using a Heiko FR802. I was at 390 degrees just then, 390 degrees centigrade. I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit while I work on these pads. This is about generally where I look at the board at. And so what I do, whenever I pull the ICs, I never use any flux. I always pull the ICs without flux. Why? I don't know. Just my preference. We got somebody watching the game in here, so sounds like somebody must have scored. From here, I'm using a Heiko FM202 with a BC2 tip, and I take lidded solder and I go around to each pad and just add lidded solder. This removes the lid free solder and blends lidded solder with it. So make sure all my pads look good, which they do. And a lot of people don't clean the pads, but I like to clean the pads. And the way I clean the pads is with hot air and wick. I'm going to be using the Tech Spray #2, which is I'm not really sure how wide it is, maybe like an 1/8 of an inch wide. I'm going to cut my temperature down on my hot air station to 350 for cleaning. I like to run this a little bit lower temp whenever I'm cleaning the pads after I've added lidded solder. Yeah, there's some Alabama fans in here. We live in Tennessee, so why they're rooting for Alabama, I don't know, but anyways. I just prefer to put my IC on flat pads. I don't like putting balls on top of balls, which is basically what you're doing whenever you're you don't clean the pads. And again, that's just my preference. I know several people that don't bother cleaning pads, but this is the way I do it. So that looks pretty good. Happy with that. At this point, we want to add a little bit more flux, just a little bit. This is the way I do this. Kind of spread it, distribute a little bit. Grab a new IC. And I've been using all new ICs. I did reball for a while. And it just didn't seem to, reball ICs just seem to break loose easier than the lidded factory ones. The lid-free factory ones. I don't know why. Don't make sense to me, but that's kind of what I see. So I saw Mark. He likes holding his IC while he's soldering. I don't like doing that. What I do is I lay the IC down and I pull my scope back off my workstation, and I zoom in. I don't know if you guys can see or not, and I just kind of, I'm using a needle now, and I just kind of line my balls up with my pads because I can see the pads underneath the IC. So that's where I wanted it. It's straight. I know the balls are right on top of the pads. The pads are flat. So now we'll actually heat the IC. Make sure I'm in focus here. Alright. And then I just start heating it up. And usually with the amount of flux I have on it right now, first of all, let me cut my heat back up. Right now I'm on 350 degrees. And I'm going to go back up to 390 centigrade. And I just watch my IC and watch for it to move into place. It moved there, and so I want to stop at this point. I'm going to add flux. I'm going to add flux all the way around. I'm going to heat it again. I've still got my needle. And once I start seeing stuff around it start to melt, I'm just going to nudge it. I just nudge it in, it moved. It's moving back in this place. So now I want to heat it for, I don't know, 5-8 seconds. And I feel like that's good. So I'm done replacing Meson on the board. And I'm going to push it to the side for the time being. And I'm going to get one of the Prime Tech Tools shields. And these are really nice shields. I like these. They're already pre-cut. You don't have to worry about cutting them. A couple of them have a little bit of a bow to them, so just kind of straighten them out a little bit. That's pretty good. And they've got a little bit of a lip right there. So what I've been doing is taking a file and just knocking that lip off of them. I've got a file around here somewhere. I just want to knock that lip off. And even though you have to, I'm going to do a little bit of fine tuning to this thing, but at least I don't have to cut it out, which was a big pain in the fucking ass before, cutting all those shields out. So if you buy 50 of these shields, they're $1 a piece, and you cannot beat that. Alright, so I'm happy with that. Now what I'm going to do is take a piece of Kapton tape, stretch right across that. And just because I got the scope here, I'm going to go around it. I'm going to leave about, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch all the way around the shield where Kapton tape will not be. You don't have to be perfect. And my reasoning behind this is the edges, the lip of the sorry, I'm thinking here. The lip of the existing housing around the touch ICs is going to prevent this from actually touching any of the capacitors or ICs or resistors or whatever. But in the middle, this will bow if it bends, and so that's really the part you want to protect. So that's the reason my main concern is the middle portion of the shield. So that's what we're going to put on top of it. Alright, so board's cooled off now. The way I clean this, the way I clean the excess flux off, I take just a little bit of alcohol, and I've got a toothbrush in here somewhere. Where's that at? Okay, finally found my toothbrush, so we're back. And again, what I do is I just add a little bit of alcohol, clean the excess flux, and what I also do is if there's any of this adhesive left, I'll go ahead and hit that, and that alcohol will break that down. I try to hold my board at an angle just so it doesn't get up under the display driver CPU area. And I'm trying to get that adhesive off now. Alright, good enough. So now I'm blowing off with the data vac. I'm not even going to test this board because I know for a fact that it was Meson that was causing me problems, just from experience. And I'm going to add a bead of flux all the way around the perimeter of the housing here. I'm going to keep my same tip I was using earlier, which was a Heiko BC2, which is probably one of my most favorite tips. And what I'm going to do, see if you guys can see me, I'm just going to get solder on my tip. I'm going to tack this. Tack it in a couple of spots. Alright. So now Here are my tweezers. And just start working going around it. And what I do is I keep my tip on this lip of this shield. And that's the way I've pretty much tried to do all the shields, even before these Prime Tech shields came out. And these things are awesome. Again, not having to cut these things. That was actually a large portion of time of what I was spending doing, is cutting the damn shields. And I'll just continue adding a little bit of solder until it looks uniform, until it looks like a smooth weld, like that. And if you go slow enough and it heats it up uniformly, it'll flow right under the shield with that flux on there. The flux I'm using is Kingbo RMA 218, and I really like this flux. It's almost as good as I'll say almost as good as, it's as good as, if not better than, the Amtech 559. And I have some Amtech, but I really like the Kingbo. So the only thing about the Kingbo is it doesn't come in a syringe, and so you have to manually transfer it to a syringe. But other than that, I love the Kingbo flux, and that's primarily what I use. The Kingbo doesn't, to me at least, just seem to burn up as fast as the Amtech. Right here, we're going to go right down next to this coax cable, and I actually like to get over here and get this ground around the coax cable, as long as I don't melt the insulation on the cable. It gives you a little bit of extra surface trim for your solder. That looks pretty good to me. And like this, you don't get any high spots of solder on top of the shield that could possibly cut into your power button flex. Alright, so after I get that, then the way I clean that is just take a paper towel or something, put a little alcohol on it, and I'll just swap this flux off. And hopefully you can see that, how clean that looks. It's slick and good to go. I also like to take on the front side, you can see these alcohol marks, and just take alcohol on my paper towel and go over it, and it turns out looking like factory. So anyway, alright, so now we need to test it. So what I'm going to do, I got a test screen here. This board is on iOS 10, so we got to hook the home button up. And this one was given gray bars and no touch again, so Really, I need to mount it in the frame and flex it to make sure that it's not going to have gray bars, but I'm pretty confident what I've done so far is going to fix this board based on history. The way I test my boards is with DC power supply and iPhone battery adapters running 4.2 volts on a Corad KA3005D power supply. And I'm going to power it on by grounding out the first pin on the power flex connector. And I'm going to have a drink of my Bud Light. You guys can see that? Falcon's Bud Light. Alright. As you can see, we got full working touch. This is somebody's personal phone. Before I started on it, I hadn't even been on the home screen. I figured it probably had a password code on it, but it doesn't. You know, a couple things we need to check once we get it on. We need to check the cameras. We need to check the proximity sensor. We need to check the ambient light sensor. A couple other things, the home button. But it looks like right now this board is repaired. Again, Meson Touch IC replacement. Thanks for watching, guys.